Welcome to the Uncensored Self Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Gillen, and this is a space where women who value achievement, success, accomplishment, and wealth, but also crave happiness, love, joy, and deep fulfillment come to remember that we get to have both. Not by doing more, but by being more of who we truly are. In this show, we explore identity, energy, alignment, and embodiment because you didn't come here to follow someone else's rules. You came to right your own. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Uncensored Self Podcast, where today we are going to have an important conversation about money. I am completely free-flowing right now, so I'm going to give you some context. You get this podcast on a Monday, so it's the Tuesday before. So it's 6 days before. I went on a walk this morning and was prepping for a client call, a private client call, and she is super sick, and so she had to reschedule. And I was like, cool, no problem. And immediately it was like, record the podcast. And then my thought was, well, I'm not prepped for the podcast. Like I had the idea, but I had it on my schedule for later today to do kind of my brainstorm, like I share with you guys I do so often. And it was like, you need to talk about money, go. And I was like, oh God, I don't know if I'm ready to talk about this because I think I'm in the middle of an extremely large breakthrough about money. So I'm just going to riff on it and pray that I can publish this because this is coming very intuitively. As we've been talking about, the podcasts have been kind of stacking up on top of one another, right? We've been talking about sales and marketing, inviting our feminine energy into the business, right? I talked about finding your voice and like authenticity. And then, how we need to stop fucking manifesting clients and money, right? Last week. But it's still this idea, but like we still want wildly successful businesses. So how do we stop manifesting clients and money but still get clients and money, right? Like, isn't that, again, last week's show was really good. I've listened to it a couple of times, but, there's still a question mark of, but what about money? Like, what is money? And I have been avoiding money as a topic that I have been studying for myself since probably second quarter-ish. First quarter, I read the book, The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. I don't know, a handful of times. I talked to you guys about it a lot. And then just really felt called to stop focusing on money. I'd been focusing on money, guys, to be honest with you, my entire career. Like, I remember standing in the restaurant that I worked at in college. So I've had to have been 20 years old and I had a credit card and I had like an $800 balance. And I was so afraid to tell my parents because I had been raised to believe that debt was bad and we do not get into debt and debt is awful and you got to work hard for money and all these things. And so, I remember having money shame as far back as the age of 18. But in like talking to a friend of mine about it, and he was like, why don't you just tell your parents? He's like, would they give you the peace of mind? I was like, I can't tell them. They've told me not to get a credit card. And I think of that sometimes, and I can even feel it in my body right now as I tell you about it. It's just this restriction that like, it's like, oh, we don't talk about this. This isn't good. This is, but at the same time, the reason why I would have told you my whole life I didn't have a problem with money is because I always wanted to make money. There's a lot of people that are like, I don't want to make money. I hate money. Fuck money. Money's bad. Like there's a lot of that. I had a really interesting conversation with a friend of mine over the weekend about that. He was like, I hate money. And I was like, you can hate it all you want, but hating something doesn't bring more of it into your life. And so anyway, I've just been on this journey with money, with putting it down. And full transparency, this whole time, my business has been growing, but like very steadily. And like we'll hit a revenue threshold and we'll stay there for 3 or 4 months. So, we are on track for a multiple 6-figure year, the first 12 months in business. And I'm super fucking proud of that. But there hasn't been this giant rush of revenue growth. And it actually really occurred to me, like you've heard the story of people who talk about people who are lottery winners and they win the lottery. And then, within however many years, they're worse off. And I never viewed myself as one of those people, but it really was like, I went through this rapid growth from like an average woman living in average life, making $75,000, $85,000 a year in the middle of nowhere, Missouri, to deciding to start a business with the goal of making $150,000 a year, to within 3 years making $1.2 million, spending $10,000 to go to Costa Rica on a retreat, or spending $50,000 to be in a mastermind. And at the time, it felt so heady and it felt so powerful, but it was also just this out of control, like, I don't know what to do with this. And what I didn't know was happening at the time was my identity didn't match the amount of money I was making. I quantum leaped, you've heard that term. I quantum leaped, but my nervous system couldn't hold it. I didn't see myself as a person with money, just like lottery winners don't see themselves as people with money. They have a lot of beliefs about money and a lot of stories about money that keep them from being able to be a wealthy person because of their belief systems around money. And that's also why oftentimes you'll see wealthy people who will go bankrupt, or they will, something will happen person, they will, be disinherited by a wealthy family member or something along those lines, but they still somehow find a way to create wealth in a different way. It's that exact same thing because their identity is that of a wealthy person. They're able to regrow that wealth. Whereas a lot of people, wherever they are when they won the lottery, or for me, like I saw myself as I had an upper middle class identity that I saw myself to be the potential to be, to be more than that. But I didn't really tap into it until, 2018, 2019, started in the business and got into the personal development side of things, right? Like stopped focusing on myself as a professional and started focusing on myself as a person. And again, this obviously, was all very intuitive at the time. I didn't know this is what I was doing, but I realized that something needed to change. And so like my results outpaced my identity. And that's why everything fell apart after I had that $1.2 million year, right? I have a list of stories 10 mile long, of fingers I can point and this happened and that happened and economy this and business partner that. But that's not, that's being a victim of my circumstances. I created that disaster in my life because my identity couldn't hold it. And so, and through all of this, I'm trying so hard to figure out how to manifest money. I want to tell you this, right? Like this is all falling apart around me. I go from 1.2 million to like a $350,000 year, which is still a fuck ton of money. I'm aware of that. But when my expenses were based at and like the shame that I felt about not being able to hold it together and becoming a cliche, like I created a really toxic relationship with money. I think it was unhealthy to begin with, as I tell you, but it went from unhealthy to toxic. Like if you haven't listened to the podcast on relationships, you should, but like we're in a relationship with everything. And I had an unhealthy relationship with money, and that unhealthy relationship with money became a toxic relationship with money real fast back in like 21, 22. And everything became about money. And that's when I really stopped connecting with my feminine energy. Like that's when I know she was no longer, like I've always been in my masculine. Let's not kid, right? Like I told you guys my story of like when I started rejecting my femininity, but I still was playful. I was still myself. I still saw myself as somebody outside of being a business owner or somebody who needed to make a lot of money, right? Like I just saw myself as a successful middle-class person. I went to work and the money showed up, and if I worked a little harder, I impressed somebody, like maybe I could climb the ladder. But all of a sudden I went from needing to be this person who made an obscene amount of money to be valuable, but it was completely self-induced. Nobody outside of me was doing this. And I think that's also something really important, where so often feels so much pressure, but I don't really think anybody expected that of me but me. I don't think anybody really expected me to be that person. I think I expected me to be that person. And then all of a sudden, but the positive thing that's happening through all of this, I'm sharing a lot of the negative, but the positive thing that is happening about all of this or through all of this is it is awakening me to my greatness. Like I do believe that part is very genuine, that was the step in the journey, like, the part of the journey that I needed to go through to really find my greatness. I do believe that I always felt I had a lot of potential and I always hit my goals. But again, I believed that they came at a price. And so, to have this just limitless potential inside of me, I didn't know that was it. Like I definitely saw a ceiling of which I would hit. Like, I don't know if I ever really thought before all of this that like millionaire was even something I could talk about, right? Like much less be a reality for me. And I'm sharing this with you because 5 years ago, it didn't seem like, again, being a millionaire was like, okay, maybe, if somebody dies and leaves us some money or something. Sorry, all of my parents and my ex-husband's parents are still living. That was horrible to say out loud. But, like honestly, that was it. How do we teach middle-class people to get rich? We tell them to wait for an inheritance or to save for their retirement. So again, I had those belief systems. But then I get thrown into entrepreneurship and all these belief systems start getting tested. And so my belief systems are changing, but literally my results outpaced my belief systems, outpaced my identity. And then I went into this really toxic relationship with money and I started chasing it. And this is going to sound so terrible, but I know you're going to resonate with this. Like, think about it. Have you ever been that clingy girl in a relationship? Like this guy is so not into you and you are so trying everything you know how to micromanage and control this person. Like I don't know why I have this. I don't know who the person is, but like you've all been that person where you were like, this guy is so not into me, but I'm going to prove to him how motherfucking amazing I am by showing him how amazing I am, by cooking him dinner, by doing his laundry, by, packing his lunch for him, by being his fucking mommy. Let's not kid. That's what we were doing. Right. But we all had this, we've all chased that. Now we do that with money. Now we do that with money. That same needy energy of, I just need you to pay attention to me. I just need you to pay attention. I just tell me you love me. Tell me I'm pretty. Tell me I'm doing a good job. Tell me I'm worthy. That is what we have done with money. We are in a toxic relationship with money. And as long as you are in a toxic relationship with money, you can't experience an overflow of money. And so what has been happening over the past few weeks for me, as I promised to share my journey, is I was called to think of a book by a guy named Neil Donald Walsh, wrote a trio of books called Conversations with God. And I've read the first one multiple times. The second and third one, I've just read them once through. I'm going to read them through again. But the first one I've read a handful of times, and it's been a really great book for me. And I like it a lot, and I revisit it. It's one I study, right? And what I didn't realize is that in this whole manifestation, universal law world, that I had kind of stopped playing with God. And I wouldn't have told you that I have religious trauma of any kind. We were Catholic growing up. We went to Catholic church, but we were not involved in the church, right? We were Easter and Christmas and christenings, I went through my first communion, but I don't think it was ever confirmed. My sister went through her first communion and her confirmation in the Catholic church. And then, that was kind of it. We stopped going to church. And I think I've told this story before. Like, I started going to churches in college, and in my early 20s, when I first moved to Florida after college, I would find myself going to churches. And I think I was seeking at the time, right? And I thought I was seeking God because that's all I knew to seek, right? Was the church's version of God. And that's definitely what I was seeking. Or I think what I was seeking is what I have found now, which is what I'm working on, which is a relationship with God. But I only knew to find it in churches. I only knew to find it in religion, but I also knew that religion never really felt good to me, right? Like, I was like, I want this loving Father, this co-creative, the Spirit of God is within you, right? Like, be still and know that I am God. Like, the really loving parts of the God, like that I wanted so badly, but I could not get behind like the really dark parts of God and things of that, the limitation and the judgments and the rules and, things like that. And so anyway, I go on popping in and out of churches my whole life, and then actually wound up getting into a church pretty heavily back in 2017. My ex-husband and I, we joined a small group. I served in children's church, all the things. And it was a really excellent experience. And then COVID happened, and obviously COVID and, kind of my awakening started at the same time. So again, I believe that I found the church to find faith. But then when I went in this awakening journey, I was having this weird relationship with the church. And I've recently discovered that I have a bad habit of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So I kind of threw God out with the church and started really talking about source and the universe. And that felt fine, but it also put a lot of pressure on me because I did feel like I had a relationship with God. Again, not the parental relationship, but like God as like, I'm not here by myself. Like there is something bigger than me. There is a guiding force that is good, not just, there's a guiding force that is good. And I've always known that. So anyway, the past couple of weeks, I felt guided to go back and listen to Conversations with God. But then while I'm scrolling, I see this book, Friendship with God. And I'm like, oh, maybe I want to do something different. I've already read Conversations, and I download the book and I inhale this book. I listened to it twice in like 4 days and was like, this is it. This is the missing piece for me, is when I was manifesting clients and money, bringing you back to money, when this journey of manifestation, I was thinking it all had to be on me. It all had to be on me. I had to figure it out. I had to do the things. I was still operating in this transactional energy, right? So tons more feminine energy in my life, right? Creativity, intuition, playfulness, but still really holding on to this masculine energy of results, right? So my experience is dramatically better of business than it has ever been. Like, I say that in my heart of hearts, like I'm having more fun in my business than I've ever been. Like, my clients are getting better results than they've ever had. The materials that I'm creating are incredible. Like, they feel so good. Like, I'm having so much fun. And that's really true. But like, the income is, like I said, it isn't climbing. It's very consistent, and it grows a little and then it stays there, and it grows a little and it stays there. And then I bounce around a little bit. But I realize that I think I'm the one that has to create everything. And it's like, no, you're not creating alone. You're creating with God. And again, I hope that you can hear this. Like, whatever God is to you, I want you to feel this. Like, this is not about the religious God or a Christianity or religion. This is about spirituality and God, right? The all that is. And so anyway, substitute whatever word you need to for God. But for me, it was like, there is a force working with you. And Bob Proctor, I'm going to butcher the quote, but he talks a lot about like, one of the first things you have to believe is that this is a friendly universe. And I've said this before, like, God always says yes. Like, God wants us to have, God sourced the universe, pick your word. I'm going to use God for the rest of this, but God, the desires of your heart are the desires of God. Like they are not one and the same. And I mean, they are one and the same. Like your desires are God's desires for you. And those desires wouldn't be on your heart if you weren't meant to have them. And so we have to believe that we live in a friendly universe. I think it is very coincidental that social media and TV and television very much want to constantly draw us to the dark that is happening in the world. And I am not suggesting that doing this work gives us an opportunity to put our blinders on of what's happening in the world. It's to be, for me, the way I view this is I want to be aware and I want to be responsible, but I don't want to be caught up because I also know that universal law is a thing. And the more we focus on the dark, the more we see dark. And so what has flipped for me in this, like bringing God back into the conversation, me, I've always viewed God as light. Like God is light. Like focus on the light. And it is what you focus on expands, but you also have to believe that it's not just focusing on our bank balances and blessing them to get them to grow. It's focusing on, we live in a friendly universe. Like there's so much good happening in the world. There's good people. And like, how does this relate to business, right? Like there's people who want to do business with you. There's people who want what you have to offer. There's people who would gladly pay for it, right? There are people who need your message. There are people who want to spend time with you. And we have this thing where the industries that we work in and capitalism as a whole, honestly, have told us that you actually have to fight tooth and nail for every dollar that you make, because this is especially like entrepreneurs and realtors and anybody like that. Like it's risky business. Most businesses fail. Like you have this like pretty high percentage of what you're doing is not going to work out. Like that's literally the program that you were handed when you chose to be an entrepreneur. And so it's just wild, right? That we get these programs and we get stuck in these stories and we get stuck in the dark. And we get stuck staring at reality. And law of attraction says what we focus on expands. So if we're looking at what everybody else in business is doing, or if we're looking at everybody else's financial situation and comparing ourselves against it, we're just going to continue to get more of the same. So for me, it was like when I realized that the weight of the world is not on my shoulders, that God, the desires of my heart are the desires of God, and that money has nothing to do with it, that money is a byproduct. And this is what, it's the money is a byproduct of the woman that you become. When I become the woman that God made me to be, when I use the gifts that God gave to me, I will then become an energetic match to all of the things that happen in that identity and are not just money, right? But so much of business education and business is about money. And we have these fucked up relationships with money because we have been taught all of these things, that money is the root of all evil, or that our worthiness, like for me, money was a worthiness thing. The amount of money I was making had everything to do with how I felt about myself. I had no sovereignty. I had no belief. Like if I wasn't making a fuck ton of money, if my bank didn't have Y in it, I made it mean something about me. And I'm just now like realizing that the amount of money in my bank account has nothing to do with the gift that God gave me. The gifts are from God. The money is a human construct. It's a human construct that I have given value. So how dare I give that human construct that I have given value more value than the gifts that God gave me? I believe that, again, in working with this higher power, it's this reminder that we're being guided. We're being guided. That thing that didn't work out, that you wanted so badly to work out, didn't work out because it was not supposed to. Because had it worked out, you wouldn't be where you are today doing what you are today. And if you're looking at the world through the lens of dark, you're like, well, yeah, how the fuck did I get here? What did I do deserve to be here? But if you're looking through the world in the lens of light, you're like, yes, everything I experienced put me here. To have this experience, I had to go through what I had to go through to be sitting here having this conversation with you. And had I cracked the code on money 2 or 3 years ago, I would not have learned the lessons that I needed to learn. But most importantly, I wouldn't have become the woman who I am now. The gifts that I would have been sharing with you, and not that my gifts weren't good, but do you know what I'm saying? Like you polish them and you fine tune them, and it's so interesting. I've never thrown clay before, but I really feel like called that I need to, because I talk about it a lot. The example of like a potter's wheel, right? Like you have your hands in the clay. You have your hands in the clay. But what I realized is I had like 8 fingers in the clay, and then like over here trying to control money, and the amount of money was controlling what I did with the clay instead of just forming the clay to allow for a lot of money. And I know I'm getting a little esoteric here on you. Like I can feel it. I'm like, come back, right? Come back. But this like I told you at the beginning of this, I'm in this huge up level around money, because as I'm evolving my sales and marketing, because I realize that there are so many things I would say in my sales and marketing differently if I weren't worried about the money, right? Like If I weren't worried about the money, I would say different things. I learned that like very recently, and I was like, well, fuck. So if I want to be genuine in my sales and marketing, I have to get over the money shit. Because if I think I have to say something specific because I'm going to sell you something that costs money and I think it's going to be weird and you're going to feel weird and we're going to have this weird exchange because, in order to have proximity to me, you have to pay for that. Like, of course it feels weird. But again, I've yet to coach a woman who doesn't feel weird about asking for a fuck ton of money for what she does, or feel like she constantly has to prove that she is worth that amount of money, that the money can't just be easy. And what I'm experiencing right now is not the work. It's not the effort that's creating the money. It's the energy that's creating the money. It's who you believe yourself to be. I believed myself to be a woman who wrote down her goals every single January and didn't hit them, because for literally a decade or more, that's who I was. I was an average middle-class woman who said I wanted, to make $250,000 a year would be mind-boggling. I wrote that down and I never hit it. And so then all of a sudden I get access to this limitless potential inside of me, but I'm like running this old operating system of this woman who's gonna get there eventually. She's gonna get there eventually. But the road's gonna be long and it's gonna be hard and there's gonna be a lot of struggle and there's gonna be a lot of sacrifice, and she doesn't get to have it all at once, because then what? Then what if you had it all at once? What will you do when you have it all? What excuses can you make? What can you hide from? And that's what I'm being confronted with right now. What are you hiding from? Who are you hiding from? And for me, what I'm realizing is it's just this old programming. I'm running a new a new operating system on old software, right? Like thinking of the iPhone, it's like I haven't done the update yet. Like I have the latest version of Instagram, but I haven't done the update, so like sometimes my Instagram does weird things. That's what I have been doing, because the old software still, again, believed she was capable, didn't believe it could be easy, didn't believe that it could come in overflow, didn't believe that it could come consistently, that didn't believe that I could do it just being me. And just being me, the more conversations that I have like this, I find that the more that I just riff and I share, the more people want to work with me. The more that I try to prepare and I try to teach and I try to impress you with my knowledge, you listen and you share. But when people are moved to buy from me, it is when I am being as true as I can fucking be in the moment. And that is what the sales and marketing workshop is, because it's really hard to be the truest version of you if you don't know who that is. And it's really hard to say what you want to say if every single thing that you do in your marketing is based on money. And that money is controlling how worthy you are. You have that money on a pedestal that it is so powerful. And just once you can rein it in, it's just that last thing. It's just that last thing you got to tackle, girl. And once you tackle it, though, Nirvana's on the other side, right? You can't be magnetic from that energy, because that energy comes from lack. It comes from proving. If every networking event you go to, you're going because you have to prove that you're good enough for people to refer you business, if every social media post you post, if nobody responds or likes or books a call or reaches out to you, you're going to be mortified. The harder you try to do something. You see this with children. Have you ever seen a kid like wrestle with their shoes? It's like the harder they try, they can't get them on. And you're like, this is very simple. But that's what we do with our business development. We try so hard to get it right, to be in the right room, to say the right thing, to choose the right strategy, to pick the right thing. But once you know what you know about your energy, you can no longer go back to trying to use somebody else's roadmap. Ask me how I know. As soon as somebody else's roadmap stopped working for me is when I had to start going inside. And I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to learn other people's roadmaps. It wasn't like I was just, reading books. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Masterminds all over the world to learn the right way to do it. When the right way all along was just say what the fuck you want to say the way you want to say it. Show up as real and true and genuine as you can. But the reason why I wasn't doing that before is because I didn't know who that person was, because I was still performing for money. I want you to join me for Sales and Marketing Alchemy. If you're still here and you're still listening and you're feeling this the way I'm feeling this is why. There's a glass ceiling that you brush up against. And it's more than most. And it's usually more than enough sometimes. A little more than just enough. You keep hitting it. And every now and again you shatter it. You come back real quick. And then the shame. What's wrong with me? We're going to work through all of that, so that you can build an intuitive marketing plan that serves you, because you are the most magnetic. when you are the most you. The workshop is November 12th. It's 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central, so you can work that out in your time zone. And when I say workshop, I'm not just teaching. Like we're going to have a live dialogue. This will be a sizable room, but not so big that you'll get lost. But it's going to be a lot of dialogue, a lot of reflection, a lot of, oh gosh, why do I believe that? Like in real time. Because to learn something is one thing. We're great at learning. You're here listening to this because you want to learn, right? But transformation happens in integration, and integration in a room full of people that are all up leveling is like a vibe of all vibes. I think when we come together and we have these conversations, the collective consciousness of the room raises and everybody is brought up just a little more and just a little more because every single woman in that room is brilliant in her own right. Tickets are $297. You get the workshop. We're going to do an integration day the week after. But what's also really cool is I have two bonuses for you. One is an energy shift day. And energy shift is my private coaching. It is now really the only way I do private coaching is via Messenger. And I fucking love it because I spent one day with a woman and the breakthroughs were bananas, like so fun. So good. Like literally within the first 30 minutes, we found this huge hang up she had around debt and trying to manifest her way out of debt. And it, my God, so good. Right. And then we went through some identity stuff. And by the end of the day, like it was a total shift. So that's a bonus. It's included in the cost of your ticket. Those I usually charge $197 for. If that's all you want, you can book one of those. But with your $297 ticket, you get one of those complimentary. And then I have the feminine energy archetype series, which is, again, really the law of gender, masculine versus feminine energy, your dreamer, your doer, your alchemist, right? How do we create magic? And I think this just really stacks up well with sales and marketing alchemy, like really understanding the energy of the alchemist. So that bundle is $97, but that's also included in your ticket. So the tickets have huge value. And I think it's gonna be really amazing. And then I have another bonus for you. Once you get in there and you buy your ticket, if you refer a friend and they buy a ticket, I'm actually going to give you the amount of their ticket in a credit to use for future programs. So really, really pumped about this conversation. Like I said, the up level I'm having about money, the teaching that I'm going to bring about money to this space is really amazing. And also sales and marketing, showing up authentically. How do we not make it about the money? How do we not make it a performance? How do we not make it about, do I fit in? Do they like me? How do I show up really confidently in any space, however you're choosing to market your business? So I'll link that in the show notes for you. If you have questions, reach out on social media. I'm always open to a conversation. I always want this to feel really aligned and supportive for everyone involved. I love you. Share this podcast with somebody who you know if they have a money story. Again, guys, the ripple effect of this work is so important and your role in it is just so powerful. And I'm so grateful. I'll see you next week. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Uncensored Self podcast. If this conversation cracked something open for you, trust that that's the work. And share this episode with a woman in your life who's ready to stop performing and start creating. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe, leave a review. It helps this message reach the women who need it most. Remember, you're the creator. The rules are yours. And your uncensored self, she already knows what to do. Keep leading, keep listening, keep becoming.